Hello, explorers. Hold on a second. Hello, explorers. Oh, I'm frozen. One moment. There we go. Hello, explorers. Let's try that again. Welcome to Reach the World. For more than 25 years, Reach the World has inspired youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens through virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and today we're kicking off a brand new virtual exchange with the Cleanest Air on Earth expedition. With more than 8 billion people on Earth, there aren't many places on the planet where scientists can go to get away from human influences on our environment and study how the natural world interacts with itself. To collect clean atmospheric data, field scientists need to leave cities behind, avoid normal shipping and flight routes, and seek remote places far away from civilization and the comforts of home. How far do you think we need to journey to find and study the cleanest air on Earth? Joining us today to answer that question and to preview this journey is Colorado State University researcher Chelsea Bekemeier. Chelsea is a member of the Cleanest Air on Earth expedition team that will be leaving the US this week for a far-flung scientific adventure. And she's joining us live today from Fort Collins, Colorado to introduce herself and preview the incredible adventure ahead. If you haven't already read Chelsea's first virtual exchange articles, definitely check them out. You can find them on her virtual exchange homepage. I've added the link in the chat and also at the bottom of your screen. Finally, a warm welcome to the classes that are joining us today. A special shout out to Mr. Gardner students at Kittredge Magnet School, Ms. Voth students at Putnam Elementary, and Mr. Burke students at Elliott Hine Middle School. We're so glad you're here. And if you're joining us via YouTube today, always feel free to drop your questions and comments for Chelsea in the chat. You can do that anytime, and we'll fold them into today's event. Okay, with all of that said, let's dive in and give a warm welcome to atmospheric researcher Chelsea. Hey, Chelsea, welcome to Reach the World.
Hi, everybody.
I suppose I should say welcome back to Reach the World because we met you at the end of our first virtual exchange expedition with the Cleanest Air on Earth together. You were involved in the first expedition to collect this data, not as on the ship scientist, but someone who is receiving the samples and data from that voyage. Can you tell us a little bit about, I think the last place we left off with you was that you were receiving all of these wonderful samples from the first voyage to the Southern Ocean, and you were excited to dive into them.
Yeah, so I work on a really big project, which is one of the largest campaigns in the Southern Ocean and Antarctica for studying ice nucleating particles. So we've currently had 3 voyages that have already been down in the Southern Ocean. And Kelsey was a part of the MESO one, which took place last year as part of Reach the World. So it was about 60 days on another boat called the Investigator, and they did a very similar to what we will be doing on this cruise, taking daily samples, different meteorology measurements, and then I get all of that data and I try to make sense of it and say what's going on in the Southern Ocean. Are we seeing different weather patterns as a result of warming? Are we seeing changes to ice nucleating particle contributions? Are we seeing different clouds and all kinds of different stuff?
Excellent. Yes, I'm glad you brought up Kelsey because Kelsey's going to be traveling with you again to the Southern Ocean. And we all got to know Kelsey very well during our last virtual exchange. But I want to take this opportunity in this introductory call for part 2 of the Cleanest Air on Earth expedition to get to know you a little bit. And you have shared some photos with us that sort of I'd love for you to talk through. So I'll bring those up and I'll slip backstage and you can just tell me when to go to the next one.
Sure. So I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia, but I moved out to Colorado around 2 years ago. 2 years in June. And I absolutely love it here. So I do a lot of outdoor sports. I do a lot of hiking, climbing, rock climbing, skiing, all of the above. So the first picture is actually me with one of my colleagues on a 14er here. And I do want to give a shout out because one of my favorite people in the world, Mrs. Voth, who I believe is on the call with her classroom, is one of my favorite hiking buddies. And so we've done a bunch of 14ers here together as well. And so shout out to Miss Voth. But yeah, I absolutely love living in Colorado, being able to do things with my friends and my colleagues. I think it's really powerful when you realize how much is outside your house if you just venture out a little bit, even not in Colorado, even in Georgia, just getting outside and touching the earth and making that connection. It really was powerful for me in becoming a scientist and wanting to say what's happening to this planet because I love it so much. And yeah, so the other picture was from last year. I don't know if many of you remember, but we had a big solar eclipse last year across the United States. So I actually drove like 16 hours in a day to stay in Russellville, Arkansas and watch the eclipse. And it was such a powerful moment. And it just brings me back to like nature is incredible. And it's one of the most spiritual grounding experiences you can have if you get to do things like hike a 14er, see an eclipse, anything. It's such a ground breaking moment. And it was really pivotal for me.
For those of us who live in slightly flatter states, can you tell us what a 14er is?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. A 14er is a 14,000 foot mountain. So essentially 14,000 feet above sea level. We don't hike that entire way. It's more like anywhere from like 2,000 to 5,000 foot elevation gain. But these are really high mountains and it's challenging to climb.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, so this is my dog. I absolutely love her. This is Cora, and this is from a pumpkin patch that we were in October, getting our pumpkins for Halloween. She is the love of my life. I think that's going to be the hardest part of this trip is leaving her behind. I did ask if I could bring her on the Noina, and they unfortunately said no. So maybe next time, but as of right now, Cora's going to be holding the fort down back here and making sure that my husband isn't lonely. And then the other picture is from my lab at CSU. So there's a lot of prep that goes into voyages like these. Like I've been preparing essentially for like the last year or two for this voyage alone. There's a lot of stuff that goes into even like preparing the filters that we have to put outside the ship. So that's an image of me preparing some of the filters and happy that I'm almost done with the filter prep. This was from this summer, actually. So for any girls that are interested in the geosciences, there is a phenomenal camp called Geo Girls, and it's free. It's scholarship based in Washington State at Mount St. Helens, so the stratovolcano there. And it's a week-long camp for science, and it is everything from geology, atmospheric science, oceanography, all that kinds of stuff. So this is actually from the end of the week when I was doing an ice nucleation demo with the girls there, and they absolutely loved it. And you can kind of see Mount St. Helens in the background, almost.
Excellent.
This is me and one of my favorite colleagues, Tiago. This was back when I was working with Georgia Tech. And we were on board, I forgot the name of the ship, but it was, or the RV Savannah from Skidaway Island. And these are Gumby suits. So essentially they are survival suits. So if the boat was going to be going under, you put these on and they're very buoyant and you just kind of float and hope for safety until something comes. But don't worry, nothing happened to the boat. It was just we were doing a demo for the other travelers of how to put it on as quickly as possible. And I think I won. I'm pretty sure I won. And then the other photo is going to be a weather balloon. So we are actually going to be, me and Kelsey are going to be launching these on the Noina. So these are essentially giant balloons that can get up to almost to the stratosphere and collect a lot of really critical meteorology information for us, like air temperature, wind speed, humidity, all kinds of stuff that we're going to use in our scientific analysis to say what's going on with the atmosphere.
All right.
This is from one of my first field campaigns. So this was actually in Korea in 2022. And it's funny, this picture is always funny to me because in 2022, Korea was still very concerned about COVID. So this trip ended up being quite an interesting field mission because there was a lot of red tape and interesting stuff. But this is the one rare picture you'll see with all of us without a mask on for like 10 seconds. And what's really cool is this was an aircraft campaign. So instead of a ship, we took 2 aircrafts. We took I'm going to mess this up, the WB-57, which is the really cool looking one. And they flew that almost like upper troposphere, lower stratosphere. And then we also took the G5, which is the more normal passenger looking plane. That's the one that my instrument was on. And we flew it all over the troposphere in Asia, trying to take measurements of sulfur dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere. And of course, you get the really cool WB-57 pilots in the front. They look like astronauts, and it was a really good time. It was fun. I learned a lot, and I made a lot of friends. So these are also from my lab. So yes, I spend a lot of time in the lab, or in the hood, as I like to say, because these are laminar flow hoods. On the left, it's going to be the picture of a treatment. So what we do, without making it super complicated, when we get all of these air filters back, we have to do tests to say like how many particles are on them. Well, a lot of these particles can actually be biological in nature. So in order to figure out what's not biological, we essentially have to kill the biological stuff on the filter. Mm-hmm. And to do that, we use UV light, really hot water, and we use hydrogen peroxide, which is really, if your mom's ever put hydrogen peroxide on your cut, it's because it's really good at getting rid of bacteria. So that's what that is. And then the other picture is once again me and my colleague Drew doing filter prep for filters that we will be taking in the field. And this is so one of my other hobbies is skydiving. I got into it like 10 years ago. This was from my 200th jump at Longmont Vance Brand Airport. So a lot of my friends came with me, and we did, I think it was like a 15-way, which is a jump with a bunch of skydivers together where you're going together linked. And it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. And one of my goals in life is to hopefully take radio sound with me while I'm jumping and maybe use it as a data collection. I haven't gotten that approved for funding yet, but maybe one day I will.
Wait, just so I'm sure I heard you correctly, your 200th jump out of an airplane?
Yes, that's
correct. Amazing.
Yes. It's a good time.
I love the fact too that as you're thinking about jumping out of an airplane, you're also thinking about, well, how can I collect data and samples from the atmosphere as I'm falling to the earth?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm always thinking about it.
Excellent.
Yes, and this is the Noina in all her glory. I actually found out the other day that Noina means Southern Lights, or Australia, or not Aurora Australis, not Aurora Borealis, Aurora Australis. So the Southern Lights is what Noina means in an Aboriginal language native to Tasmania, which is really cool because I hope we'll get to see some Southern Lights down there. And this is a really big ship that we're going to be on. So I'm super excited to show you guys around and see what it looks like myself, because I've never been on it, and it's going to be a really great adventure. Awesome. So those are filtered. These are actually very similar to what we're going to be doing, but they're kind of a smaller scale. So this was from Skidaway Institute of Oceanography again. So where me and Tiago were in our Gumby suits. So those are little air filter units. You'll notice that they look like they have noses. And that nose is where it's pulling in air. And then essentially we have a pump at the other end. So it's making sure that air comes through. And then what happens is different particles in the air will deposit on the filter that is inside that little white unit. And then that's the good stuff. That's what we are going to look at and analyze and see what's going on out there. And then on the right is a CTD rosette. So it stands for conductivity, temperature, and depth. It's essentially this big thing that we're going to drop into the ocean probably 5 or more times a day, and then it goes down to different depths. So we'll do like one at the surface, we'll do one at 5 meters, 10 meters, 30 meters, or wherever else they want to sample. And then each of those little canisters, I want you to imagine, like, does anybody have that cool water bottle that you can like push the button, the cap flips open? It's like that. So we can trigger it from the boat and we'll say fire the capsule, and it'll open, and then it'll collect a bunch of water, and then we'll close it. And then when it comes back up, we take those water samples and we essentially save them in little vials, and then we will do analysis on that as well.
Very cool.
So this is an example of the filter prep that we do. I just want to reiterate that a lot of planning and prep goes into stuff like this. So it's not like we just get on the boat. This is something that's been in the works for a long time. Each filter unit, so we'll be taking about 2 a day, maybe more if there's an interesting event going on. Each filter unit has to be individually cleaned and prepped. So it's been quite the journey to get these made for the voyage. And now I'm excited to put them in the field. So this is the fun of packing, which has been my life for the last 2 months. Once everything's prepped and we have made sure that we have all the equipment, we have to figure out the best way to get it to Tasmania, which is basically the other side of the world. So it's a lot of, if you're really good at Tetris, I should hire you, because I'm not, and I require people in my lab that are good at stuff like that to help me fit everything in these big black cases that we send to Tasmania. And it takes a lot of patience, but we got it done and everything got shipped out on Friday. So hopefully it'll all be there on time. And then the other picture is just kind of like what it looks like before we pack it. It's just a nice mess everywhere. So it's like a very, you walk in the lab and it's just staring you in the face and you're like, I just can't wait to get this out of here. And then this is part of my team. So they all helped me prep for the voyage and they helped me get everything shipped out. So we're going to have Evelyn and then Jessie, who is my principal investigator. So she's essentially my boss and is helping organize the whole trip. And then we also have Kevin and Maria. So shout out to them because I could not have done this without them.
All right. Excellent. Chelsea, that's what a cool sort of look at your background, how you became interested in research science. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you on behalf of the students who are going to be following this journey, because there's so much to explore. Everything you've said, I feel like we could talk about for 30 minutes. But when you were just sort of getting started in school and trying to decide what you wanted to do for your career, how did you decide on science?
So it's really funny. I do not have a traditional path. I did not immediately go into science. I wanted to be a scientist from a young age. I was always obsessed with being an astronaut, and I just loved science, but I actually really struggled with math in high school. And I had a couple teachers that, like maybe didn't believe in me too much. And I really kind of took that to heart for a while. So I actually was in more of climate policy for my first degree. Which I really enjoyed as well. And it's still very important, which it's more like politics of how we're going to fight climate change and like what we need to do. But in that, I kind of realized, I was like, what do I have to lose by just trying? So I actually went back to school and I got a degree in atmospheric science. So I will say that the love and the passion has always been there. It was more of the self-doubt that prevented me from going into it immediately. But to anybody who's ever struggled or like second guesses themselves, just try, because like you can you can probably do it, and don't listen to people that say maybe you can't, because if you have enough of a passion and a drive, like, you can get it done. And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to go back, and now I get to do what I love.
It's wonderful advice. Thank you. You have described in the last couple of minutes 2 different sides of your work. One where you're spending long hours sterilizing collection equipment and getting ready to go into the field. And you showed us a couple examples, notwithstanding the one you're about to go on, where you're out of the lab and you are on a plane or in Korea or off the coast of Antarctica on a ship, the field work side of collecting those samples. Do you have a favorite? Would you rather be in the lab processing samples and sort of unveiling what the data tells you, or collecting the data in the field?
Yeah, so without a doubt, I would say fieldwork. Fieldwork is a lot of fun. It's a really good time. I call it like adult science camp. It really is. It's a lot of hard work, but it's such a good time. And I also get to learn from so many different people. And it makes me that like kid again, where I might be on the ship with an oceanographer and I don't really know a whole lot about oceanography. And then they tell me cool facts and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love science. Like, this is so cool. I do love lab work as well, but 100%, like, definitely the adult science camp is my favorite part.
It does sound fun. Tell us a little bit about the journey you're about to undertake, just the logistics. You said you had packed up your lab and that it looked like you had a lot of luggage. I hope you're not carrying all that onto the plane. How does it get there, and how do you get there, and where exactly are you going and how?
Yeah, so all of the stuff that you saw in that picture from the lab, we are shipping. So that will go through FedEx. So yeah, seems super normal, but we're going to essentially, I'm guessing, going to go either on a plane or a boat and make its way all the way to Tasmania, which is just under Australia. And then I fly out on Friday, and I will be going to Hobart, Tasmania as well, because that's where the ship, the Noina, is going to be. And we will be there for a couple of weeks, making sure that everything gets on the boat correctly and everything's installed, and doing safety and all kinds of other briefings before we get on the ship. So yeah, that's kind of how everything is going to go. And then on February 27th, we are going to be embarking from Burnie, which is actually the other side of Tasmania. So we're going to be getting on the boat there, and then we will be taking the boat all the way to the Denman the Denman Glacier, near the Shackleton Ice Shelf, which I believe it might be. It's on East Antarctica. And then we will be essentially riding the coast for a month and a half before we go back.
All right. That sounds like a really far journey. Like, you are going to be, if we used Fort Collins, Colorado as like 0 as the starting place, do you have an estimate of how many hours you're going to have to fly just to get to Tasmania to get to the ship?
Yeah, it's going to be a full day of travel. It's going to be about a little over 24 hours. So I'm flying to San Francisco, which is about 3, and then I think it's about 15 to, oh, actually, no. So I'm flying from San Francisco to Brisbane, which is North Australia, and then from Brisbane to Hobart. So yes, it's going to definitely be around like 30 hours.
And that's just to meet the boat, just to meet the ship and, collect your things. How long do you travel from Tasmania to the ice shelf, to basically the coast of Antarctica?
So the boat moves pretty fast. So I think it's only going to take us maybe a week to get down there. And then we're going to be staying there and going back and forth for a while along the coast.
Excellent. I think a lot of students would find it exciting and adventurous to be going so far away from home on a scientific adventure like this. When you get there, you are joining people from all over the world who are participating in research aboard the ship and on this journey as well. How do you, when you arrive in a place like that and you know your sort of common interest is science, how do you meet new people? How do you like arrive on a ship and meet people from other countries?
Yeah, so it can be really overwhelming. I am a big introvert, but like you said, I love science, and that like tends to bring the best out in people. We're all a bunch of nerds in a good way. So I think, yeah, just like really talking to other people, learning about their research. I'm super excited. I actually bought, so these are googly eyes. I don't know if you can see that. So me and one of the technicians from Davis Station, Antarctica, that I've been working with for the last 2 years, he loves googly eyes and he puts them on everything. And he says it's a great way to meet people and to like, you know, literally break the ice, pun intended. So I brought a bunch of googly eyes, and he is actually coming on the ship as well. So I'm going to surprise him, and we're going to have a good time putting googly eyes on everything. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Excellent. I know you had mentioned you're going to miss your dog, and being away from home is hard for anybody. What are some things that you are like must-have things that you're packing and bringing with you to make being away from home a little bit less difficult?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Yes, I am an adult, but I still have a stuffed animal that I love to take on field missions. So I'm going to take my stuffed animal with me.
Great.
Just because, you know, you need something to hug while you're far away. And I have no shame. If you like stuffed animals, you like stuffed animals. So I'll be taking my stuffed animal with me. And then I'm also taking, Tasmania is actually known for really good climbing. So I'm bringing some of my hiking and climbing gear because I'm going to be doing some exploring before the big expedition. And that'll make me feel like I'm at home as well. And my husband made me a book of notes to take.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice. What is it, if there's one thing you're just really looking forward to, or you're really curious about, or you just sort of wonder what it's going to be like from this journey, what is that?
I think the biggest thing for me, since I've done research on Antarctica for 2 years now, and I've never been. So I think just being able to see it with my own eyes, and especially seeing how much it's changing. What I've heard from other scientists that have been there and have been monitoring it, like it's kind of shocking how quickly it's changing, and not in a good way. But just seeing that with my own eyes and having that like visceral feeling of like, this is why we need to protect this area of our planet, and kind of really feeling like my research is going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And we had previewed at the beginning of this conversation that we have to, and you have to travel quite a far distance to get the sort of clean data that you're looking for, that is sort of absent any pollution or evidence of human presence. What makes where you're going in the Southern Ocean so special for data collection? Why are you going so far into such great lengths to gather data from off Antarctica and not somewhere else?
Yeah, so as you had mentioned, this Antarctica is really cut off from the rest of the world. So the reason that we want to study this, well, there's many reasons, and I'll try to hit the majority of them in the next few minutes. But so unlike the Arctic, which is surrounded by land, the Arctic has a lot of human influence, because it's surrounded by a bunch of different countries. Like we think of it as isolated, but it's really not. Versus Antarctica, which is truly isolated because there aren't really any land masses around. You have the polar vortex around it that really does help to keep it kind of an isolated mass and isolated air. And because of that, the air is still fairly pristine and lacks human influence for the most part. I will say that we are starting to see changes, but for the most part, it's still the cleanest air on Earth. And we really want to study this for a multitude of reasons. One being that it's a good proxy for, which a proxy means like a stand-in. So it's a good stand-in for what the atmosphere might have been like before anthropogenic influence, before humans started polluting everything. And then another reason is that we really just want to study this area specifically because it holds 75% or more of the world's ice, and ice is so important in regulating Earth's climate. So if this area of our planet is starting to change, we need to really have this as our like key moment to monitor it, to understand what climate change is going to mean for the rest of the planet. Mm-hmm. And I can go more into that or less into that because I love to talk about it. But essentially, yes, this is the cleanest air on Earth, but it's also such a protected area that we need to continue to monitor and protect because it's changing.
Fabulous. And over the next few months, we're going to get to see what you're seeing through your eyes and through this virtual exchange as you experience that, which I consider myself very lucky to get to do, because not many people get to go to that part of the world. And I'm glad you're going as our eyes and ears to check it out. I have to ask before we go about wildlife, because Antarctica is special for a lot of reasons, but do you expect to see many creatures either in the air, on anything living on the land or the ice that you'll see, or in the water?
Yeah, so my answer is I don't entirely know, but I think we should maybe be able to see some penguin colonies while we're there, which I'm very excited about. And then also I've heard from Kelsey and from other people that there's a lot of whales that we will likely be able to see as we're traveling down through the Southern Ocean, and other different kinds of lovely Tasmanian birds and Southern Ocean birds. So lots of interesting wildlife that we hopefully will get to see.
All right, fantastic. Well, our goal today was to meet you and to introduce the part 2, as we call it, of the Cleanest Air on Earth expedition. I think we've accomplished that. Over the next few months, we're going to be talking with Chelsea quite a bit and hearing her live dispatches from the ship at sea as she's collecting this data. And we'll be sharing all of that with the students and classrooms that are following along, which is very exciting for me. I want to leave a little bit of mystery as to what's going to come, but we're going to go a lot more into what it's like to live and work on a research vessel, what it's like to collect data. Hopefully we'll get to see some of the processes that Chelsea described today. And also, if we see penguins and whales, we'll be sure to share that as well. So that's about it for the time we have today. Again, this is just the beginning of our journey. Chelsea, have a safe and wonderful trip to Tasmania. I hope you get to do some rock climbing.
Thanks.
And for all of our classrooms and students who are following along, I am going to put up one more time at the bottom of the screen the link to where you can find Chelsea's articles, which she already has a couple up, and there will be many more over the coming weeks. And together we're going to explore this really unique part of the world together. So it's great to be on a journey with you all. And until next time, keep exploring. Goodbye for now. And thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.